Hey, what's up? I'm Technologics, and today we're taking a look at the iPhone 3GS. How does it perform in 2017? So I bought this phone off of eBay a few weeks ago for around $30. I had never used the 3GS before this. Actually, that's a lie. I have an aunt who used to have one, and I probably played a game on it at some point. I can't remember, to be honest. I also have a friend who had one quite a few years ago. I think it was actually stolen from him, which sucked, but I do remember using it a little bit. But anyways, I never really used it too much. Not enough to make a judgment on whether it was a good phone or not anyway. I bought it specifically to review, and I actually planned to do a video on it much sooner than this. But then I thought, why rush it? I may as well use it for a while and then deliver a proper verdict on its stance for 2017. So I started a Clash of Clans account and actually used the phone. There's a lot I want to get to about the 3GS, so buckle up. The iPhone 3GS was released all the way back in 2009 and was actually an upgrade to the year-old iPhone 3G. Let me quickly explain the chronology of the iPhone. It's a little complicated. The first iPhone ever is known as the iPhone 2G, not the iPhone 1. This is because it can only connect to 2G cellular data, which is really slow. The second iPhone, the 3G, redesigned the iPhone and added 3G network capabilities, which was much faster. The third iPhone, the 3GS, was simply an upgrade over the 3G, much like the iPhone 4S was an upgrade over the 4. The design of the iPhone 3GS is really old. It has the last design with the original iconic iPhone look. The 2G did have a different design, but it was still fairly similar. The 2G didn't have the plastic back like the 3GS, but it did have that curved style, I guess, that Apple moved on from with the iPhone 4. It wasn't flat like it is today. The phone is very glossy and is made up of a very high quality plastic that looks pretty darn good in my opinion. It does tend to pick up fingerprints, but that's not a big deal. This phone actually reminds me a lot of the iPhone 5C, which is the latest plastic iPhone pretty much, although that one is definitely much higher quality in the build. The biggest flaw in this design is that the back tends to crack near the charging port. Mine is a little bit cracked, but it's barely even noticeable. However, if you look these up on eBay or wherever, you'll see that a lot are pretty beat up. It's an 8-year-old phone at this point, so that makes sense. Typically, the older the phone, the more beat up most of them are. If you look up iPhone 2Gs, without paying a lot of money, you're going to find most of them are extremely in bad condition, I guess. The iPhone 3GS I have is actually in really good condition. I got a steal for this thing. I'm very happy with it. Overall, I really like the feel and look of the 3GS. It fits well in the hand and is really comfortable to hold, probably because of the curved back. And design-wise, I really do think it's one swell-looking device. Does anybody still say swell? I don't know. Anyway, it has a premium look to it, despite the plastic. The phone is fairly thick, at about half an inch, which doesn't sound like a lot, but compared to any newer iPhone, there's a big difference. It's got a bit of heft to it too, although it is slightly lighter than the iPhone 4 at 4.75 ounces or 135 grams. The screen of the iPhone 3GS is small, at only 3.5 inches. While it is much more comfortable to use than the iPhone 6, at least in my opinion, I do find myself missing the extra screen space. The big deal comes up next. The screen resolution is awful. When I say awful, I mean really, really bad. The display is 320 by 480, which is wow. It has a pixel density of 165 pixels per inch, and this is probably what sets it most apart from any newer iPhone aside from the design. If you've watched any of my videos, you're probably used to me saying that everything on the screen will look very clean and very crisp. This is not the case with the 3GS. This phone is actually pre-retina display, and you can definitely see the pixels. It might not show up too much in the video, but when you see it in person, you can definitely tell the quality difference. I never realized how much of a difference the retina display made, but it really did. And if you didn't know, the retina display came with the iPhone 4 and basically doubled the amount of pixels. For me, this is a huge distraction when I'm trying to use this phone. However, it might not bug you. Like with the small screen, I can get used to it, and I did when I used it for longer periods of time, and the resolution might not even matter to you. you, and that's fine. I just want to make sure that I said that the 3GS does not look that good, at least compared to newer phones. The battery on the 3GS from experience is not too bad, but it does tend to die after a few days on mostly standby with an occasional Clash of Clans playing. For moderate use, I'd imagine you could probably get a day out of it if you really wanted to. Just make sure you have a charger nearby just in case. Camera wise, the phone is not very good, but I mean, it was really good for 2009, so it's just not great now. It has 3 megapixels and can shoot 480p video at 30 frames per second. As you can see on the footage on screen, it's pretty bad. Also, and this is going to be a big deal to some more than others, there's no front-facing camera. So if you want to take selfies, pass on this phone. There doesn't seem to be FaceTime either. So camera-wise, this phone does not hold up whatsoever. 2009, this thing was the bomb, but definitely not today. And I think this is kind of the recurring theme as we're going over this device. Spec-wise, the 3GS is pretty bad. It had a 600 megahertz processor with a quarter gig of RAM, or 256 megabytes. So that is pretty darn bad and old, and wow. Okay, so this is before Apple even introduced their own chipset. For example, the iPhone 4 has the Apple A4 processor. There was never a A3 processor. A3 and A3. Anyway, this really goes to show the age of the 3GS. But how does the iPhone 3GS actually perform in 2017? Specs are all good and fun, but they aren't always the best indicator of how the phone works. It runs iOS 6, which was the last version of iOS to have the classic, more realistic design. I'll be honest, I miss this. It looks really nice even on the poor display. And it runs iOS 6 surprisingly well. If you compare it to the iPhone 4S running iOS 9, it runs it way better than the iPhone 4S runs iOS 9. Everything opens up fairly quickly. What this really goes to show you is that how well iOS 6 was optimized, and it was a really good operating system. So when it comes to stock apps, the iPhone 3GS, I was gonna say 4, the iPhone 3GS actually performs not bad. Like opening things like weather, or if I was to text somebody, it's not bad. I was sending pictures to a couple of my friends texting, and it would send it in like 3-4 seconds, which is actually fairly similar to what phones are doing nowadays too, so that's pretty good. When you go on things like Safari, you can really see a dip in speeds, because it just doesn't have a lot of power to load things, so it's quite slow to try to do any internet browsing whatsoever. For apps, since this is iOS 6, there is a way to get more modern apps such as YouTube. It lets you download the latest compatible version. I believe the same for Facebook. A lot of apps you can do that, so that's actually pretty cool that it does that. So I have YouTube running on it, and I also have Instagram on it, and newer apps do run on the 3GS, believe it or not, and they don't run absolutely awfully, just not great. So performance wise, I was able to live with it. I was actually quite able to live with it, doing certain things like YouTube browsing wasn't great, Instagram wasn't great, but I could still do it. And, you know, games like Clash of Clans, that played fine. It just didn't look that good because of the screen. So, hey, you know, this is, it's pretty impressive how long this thing has lasted, in the sense that it can still do a lot of modern things. And I'm very impressed by it. I wasn't expecting this kind of, I keep using the word, but this kind of performance 8 years later. You know, that's pretty darn good. So I'll summarize quickly. Performance-wise, the iPhone 3GS is not good. It's pretty bad, but it's surprisingly good. So what I mean by that is that I would have expected it to be a lot worse than it is. It can actually run some stuff today, and that's great. Spec-wise, the 3GS is really bad, and that's more noticeable when you're on Safari or browsing YouTube or whatever. Camera-wise, no. 3 megapixels, no front-facing camera. I would pass on the camera there. The battery on the 3GS isn't bad from what I've seen. The screen is both small and poor resolution, so you can see pixels, things are a little bit blurry a lot of the time, and it's just not a great situation there. The design is really nice. I don't think there's been an iPhone design I don't like specifically, so for design wise, it's pretty nice. I definitely like the black better. How does the iPhone 3GS hold up in 2017? Like you would expect, except a little bit better in a few aspects. So not very well. However, again, and I think I said this in my iPhone 4 video, not everybody needs all this fancy stuff on their phone. Some people need it just to make calls, to text people, and for that, it could work. It does that fine, and you know, that's a pretty big thing. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was really fun to look back at this thing, and I hope to do, if you guys want, I'd love to do some more videos with it because I have one now, and it's pretty cool. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please consider dropping a like and subscribing if you want to see more stuff like this. Leave a comment down below telling me your thoughts on this phone. Do you have one? Would you like to get one day just for your collection or whatever? Would you actually use it? Let me know. You could also dislike this video if you did not like it. However, I should warn you, if you do that, you will probably die within the next 3 days. And I'm not lying, this is completely legit. If you dislike this video, you will die. It's a matter of fact. So you should definitely avoid disliking this video. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you all next time.